Have you heard of synesthesia? Whether you have or not, I'm here to tell you about it in my own very sporadic fashion. The crossing of wires in the brain to interpret different sensory inputs as one or more unrelated senses. It can come in many different forms. For example, sounds as color or tasting words. For visual synesthesia, where one sense is interpreted through vision, it can appear where the synesthetic's brain directly interprets something as what they see. Others have an internal overlay, or they can see it if they concentrate on it. Humans have various sensory inputs, such as taste, hearing, touch, sight, and smell, and not quite as well-known ones, including proprioception, knowing where you are in space, and balance, where your orientation is in space. Without these senses, we would be lost as to what's happening in the world around us. While most people experience each sense separately, where taste is one thing and hearing is another, those with synesthesia can experience the same stimuli and have more than one interpretation from their brain. Not really. Some neurodivergent people have it, meaning that they developed it sometime in their life with no reasonable cause, or they were born with it. Some people don't even notice they have it. There is some evidence that everyone has some form of synesthesia when they're infants, as part of the developmental process. If it persists after infanthood, that's where it gets noticeable. People with synesthesia have more connections in their brain than other people, which is likely the source of the multiple experiences from one sensory input. Synesthesia is 3 times more likely to develop in people with ASD. It also runs in families. Those who suffer damage to the brain can acquire synesthesia, although it can be less frequently experienced. Music doesn't trigger this form of synesthesia, while developmental synesthesia is triggered by music. Hallucinogenic drugs like LSD can cause temporary synesthesia, especially in high doses. This form can be emotion-dependent and non-automatic. Some people can train themselves to have synesthesia-like response to stimuli, but this can be lost if they don't practice it frequently, and is nowhere near as strong as to what someone with synesthesia experiences. 4% of the population experiences synesthesia, but it's possible that it could be as common as 1 in 8 people for some types. Yep, since it deals with your perception of the world, it only makes sense that there would be different forms for different sensory combinations. Some types include sound-color synesthesia, where you interpret sounds as color; day-color synesthesia, which is a color association for the days of the week. This is one of the most common forms of synesthesia. There's grapheme color synesthesia, which is the one I have. It's where people experience a letter, a number, or a phonetic sound as a color. This can work alongside visual synesthesia's projection effect to make a bunch of different colors. That's it. Hearing motion synesthesia, where someone sees something moving and hears a sound associated with it. Mirror touch synesthesia is where someone can watch another person touch something or get hurt and feel the same thing. It can sometimes be so severe that they feel extreme debilitating pain if they see someone break a bone or even simply get pinched. Time-space synesthesia is the most complex form of synesthesia, where certain patterns or sequences can be seen by the Time-space synesthesia is the most complex form of synesthesia, where certain patterns or sequences can be seen by the one experiencing it. Lexical gustatory synesthesia is where certain words or sounds evoke taste. This is rarer than most other types of synesthesia. Ticker tape synesthesia is where someone sees subtitles whenever someone talks, visualizing the words as they're spoken. It's not treatable, but those with developmental or acquired synesthesia can learn to manage any unwanted effects. Now, here's some frequently asked questions I found on the internet while looking up the word synesthesia. Not quite. People on this spectrum tend to also have synesthesia more often, but having synesthesia doesn't mean someone is autistic. Synesthesia can be useful to remember things and make people more detail-oriented, which are traits that are commonly associated with autism. As synesthesia can help with memory, associating with things with other things, and details, synesthetes tend to be considered more intelligent. It can, usually in acquired synesthesia or drug-induced synesthesia. It can also fade over time. I myself would rather not have it go away, as it makes boring things more interesting, even if more exciting things can become rather overstimulating. That highly depends on the person and the kind of synesthesia they have, if any, and if it's visual. For me, it's red. Apparently, red is one of the most common colors associated with 3. For the finale, I was going to attempt to animate what sounds looked like to me, but then once I got started, I realized that the colors would change fast enough to be difficult to accurately depict. So instead, I'm going to give you a bunch of phonetic symbols and what sound they color like, what color they sound like, and their colors how I see them. This is difficult because I was typing and having to input the colors I hear and not read. Don't think too hard about it. Anyways, I've told you everything I can, and I hope that you learned something new. Enjoy!
Yippee!